Hey everyone, this is Taiki. Today I want to talk about why Japan has become living hell for young people. Let's talk about wages being stuck in a rut and the soaring living cost in this country. According to a 2023 survey by Indeed KK, 53.9% of 2,400 employees in Japan had no increase in wage. If you add those who experienced a pay cut, that number goes up to 60%. You can see the graph here. Japan is the light blue one. As you can see, other countries, Australia, United Kingdom, and the States, is increasing, but the Japan's wage hasn't increased for over these years. Lots of people in Japan these days have always been promoted to a higher position in a company because, as you can see, wage doesn't really change. Even if you became an executive manager in a company, you just have more responsibility on you with not so much wage raise. So that's why lots of people are not interested in promoted these days, and economy is just dying. Now, speaking of depressing economy, Japan raises taxes when it's in depression. Other countries do the opposite. They usually lower the taxes when the country is in depression so that more people can spend money on things leading to prosperity. For example, Germany, when Germany was in depression, they raised the taxes, and that saved Germany from depression. So why does Japan do the opposite when they should lower the taxes to save the country from depression? Has something to do with the Fiscal Law Article 4, which GHQ forced Japan to join after the World War II. What is a fiscal law about? Japan has to use its taxes when it's deficit. We cannot use public debts, but we have to use taxes. That's pretty much what Fiscal Law Article 4 is about. Why did GHQ or the America force Japan to create such a law? GHQ or America didn't want Japan to gain power for war after the World War II, after Japan lost. Japan was threatening in eyes of everyone, so GHQ wanted to ensure that Japan didn't issue governmental bonds by establishing Fiscal Law Article 4. Because lots of resources for war and firepower come from governmental bonds. The problem isn't high taxes alone. It's just that we don't get anything from the high taxes. For example, Sweden has high taxes, but they offer university for free, whereas Japan, we don't get anything like that. So far, I hope you understand the low wage that doesn't get increased for many decades, raising taxes, raising living cost are becoming the problem, and the economy isn't getting any better. Plus, young people particularly don't vote here, either because they feel helpless or they're not interested in politics, they don't care about politics, or we're just not really educated about politics. In Sweden, for example, they are raised being educated about politics from such young ages. In Japan, we receive no education about politics. So, although the voting age lowered from 20 to 18 like 10 years ago, it was like really low rates of young people actually go voting. It is actually harder to find young people who actually vote. And I've heard people say something like, if I'm the only one who's unhappy, I'm not okay. But if everyone else is unhappy, I'm okay being unhappy. It is collectivistic culture Japan has. If everyone else, for example, working extra 90 hours per week, I'm fine working 90 hours extra per week. That's the Japanese typical mindset that I would never be able to agree with. I know no country is perfect, and I know you're dying to share your opinions, share your thoughts, share your situations of your country. Please, I'm interested in hearing about your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time. Like in the future, I just left out something important about Japan. It's about the wage. Japan has long hours of working. You might know. Some companies, some work outside of Japan, some jobs outside of Japan, so do they. But the problem, especially in Japan, is like the longer you work in a company, your salary gets higher your salary is. So people who are older, typically older, are the ones getting the highest salary. Japan's traditional companies, they subscribe to this seniority wage system. That is why I'm talking about young people in this video. And as you can see, these days, recent years, the graph I showed you, wage isn't increasing. So it used to be like the older generation, it used to be like if you're working for like 20 years in a company, you get a huge wage raise. But like these days, Japan, young people working in companies don't get anything like that. And despite being in an executive or higher position, by being promoted, you don't really get low raise in high wage, so you don't get really salary raise. So you just have more responsibility, and then you don't have difference in wage. So that's why I wanted to specifically talk about why young people are struggling, especially. I'm not saying only young people are struggling. Some people, the older people who have no asset after their retirement, are struggling too, because pension is quite low. But the young people right now, they're struggling economically a lot more than when the elderly people now were younger. And young people, I've seen many people going to Australia with working holiday visa to earn a lot more money. It's a common thing for you Japanese people to do, because salary is pretty much like triple the salary here in Australia. Triple the salary, Japanese salary in Australia, so no wonder why. And also, people are starting to realize that the traditional Japanese companies, which is still dominant, provides long hours. There's lots of people pleasing, boss pleasing. You're supposed to be really submissive to your boss, all that stuff. The Japanese companies are required to be have a extreme manners sometimes. You know, if some of your boss invites you to drinking, you couldn't really refuse. And since the older generation are the bosses now, young people still feel the pressure to go on to drinking with a boss that they don't really even like. They would just rather stay at home. I heard that many young people here, yeah, I'm not sure about other countries, but they rather stay at home, watch a YouTuber, their favorite YouTuber, getting the super chats. Sending the super chats to them. That's how they spend the money. Also, they spend the money on the mobile games. Because some games, for example, I think many games have the upgrade function by just spending the real money. So yeah, I still don't understand why young people would do that. Really, because that's not what I would do. I would just save the money, or I would just use the money for education, use the money for something that leads to self-improvement, so on. So I still don't understand why young people do that. I still don't understand why elderly people want to go drinking with colleagues, or want to get promoted, or want to own a car, which is clearly not my cup of tea. So you see that I'm sandwiched by people who I just don't agree with. I just don't empathize with them. I just don't really feel like I fit in. So if you like those types of people, I think Japan can be a good place to live, good place to explore. If you're into like self-improvement, if you're into like meditation, philosophy, like me, probably you don't really fit in unless you look for someone like those. But my impression is it's really, really rare. And I've definitely seen many more people who are into self-improvements outside of Japan.